All right, so I am live, and now I have to flip this around. There we go. I don't know why I have such a problem with when things are backwards. It really gets to me. I have enough trouble with just the thumbnail by itself, but yeah, when it's backwards, it's just a little bit crazy. But anyway, I am live today because yesterday, when I was out plein air painting, maybe some of you have seen that video. I was struggling a little bit with mixing my grays, and you may have seen recently that I had switched to Williamsburg oils, and I spent some time mixing colors um, with them. I mean, the first thing I usually do is I mix each color with every other possible color just so I can see what all the two color mixes are. And in this particular case, what I am doing is set up here. I've taken each color, and since I had a little bit of a struggle uh, mixing these grays yesterday, I thought I would come into the studio and work it out. I mean that's probably the probably the best thing I could possibly do is figure out where the trouble spots are and then figure out the best way to work through them. Right? I mean, that's a I think that's to a great way to grow, and so that's what I'm going to do today. And fortunately, by the magic of an iPhone and going live on YouTube, you're going to get to see what I'm up to here. And first thing I'll do is I'll talk you through my colors, and then I'm going to mix them over here to the side, and you'll just have to trust me that I'm mixing what I say I'm mixing, because it's a little tough to show you the whole thing without making you completely dizzy and uh, yeah, going back and forth and all of that good stuff. So um, what we have here is this is a permanent yellow, and when I switched to Williamsburg, I made an intentional decision to try and work away from cadmiums. Um, Not really, because it's something I didn't really think a lot about it in the past, and you know, whether or not I was using cadmium or not using cadmium. I can't paint with gloves on, so although I do that in the wintertime out of necessity to keep my hands warm, in general, I have trouble painting with rubber gloves on, so I just choose not to. And I guess I was a little bit concerned that, you know, I'm not a real super neat painter, and I'm always holding my paper towel in my left hand, which is constantly being soaked with thinner and paint and whatever else. And so I just made a decision that I would try and work away from cadmiums, and I did, and it's no big deal. So I found suitable colors that I'm happy with in this Williamsburg line that I think match my cad yellow light and my cadmium orange, which were the two main cadmiums that I was using anyway with my other paints. Um, but this is an example of you know, when you change your palette up, or you add a color, or you bring in a whole new brand of paints, as I've done. It's a really good idea to spend some time trying to figure out what's possible with them, because I can tell you now from experience, just because ultramarine blue, this is French ultramarine, and orange make a gray with one brand of color. You may get something completely different with another brand of color. So, which is definitely what happened here. So, what I have, anyway, I'll go through the colors for you. This is a permanent yellow, and this is Indian yellow. Um, this is a permanent orange instead of a cad orange. This is transparent red iron oxide. This is phthalo green yellow shade, which I was using before, but by a different brand. Olive green, French ultramarine, King's blue, which I had seen a number of other people that I follow on Instagram and on YouTube who were using King's blue, and I never gave it a try. But I have to tell you, I'm really, really into this color. It really get some great results for dealing with the sky. And then alizarin crimson has obviously been a staple for me for a really long time. So what I like to do is I like to mix all of my natural grays as cross complements, and which if you're not familiar with that term, that means that it's a color that sits exactly opposite the color wheel as the color you're mixing. So since I don't have a purple on my palette, I actually have to mix my purples in order to mix them with other colors, and so the cross complement for yellow is purple. So what I've done and what I've laid out here is so you have the permanent yellow, and then you have French ultramarine, and you have alizarin crimson. Those are my three primaries. And then this is a version of the primary, it's just a different blue, so you've got the same, except the king's blue is substituted in the middle. And then when I dropped down, I went to the other yellow that I have, which is the Indian yellow, and I'm going to mix the same, Indian yellow, French ultramarine, alizarin crimson, and then I'm going to do the same down here, Indian yellow, king's blue, and and alizarin crimson. And then for my orange and blue, which those two sit opposite each other on the color wheel, and you'll find it interesting that these are NFL colors, purple and yellow are NFL colors. You'll see a lot of complements used in sports. But so we've got the permanent orange and ultramarine blue, the permanent orange and the king's blue. And then green and red are opposite each other on the color wheel. So we're going to mix the phthalo green yellow shade with the alizarin crimson. And then we'll actually mix the olive green with alizarin crimson. And then we'll mix the phthalo green yellow shade. Just because this is a combination I want to see, is the phthalo green yellow shade and transparent red orange oxide, and then the olive green and the transparent red iron oxide. So permanent yellow, Indian yellow, permanent orange, transparent red, iron oxide, phthalo green yellow shade, olive green, French ultramarine, king's blue, and alizarin crimson. Those are our combinations. Now, you know from watching me that I am a person who mixes with a brush on the palette and on the canvas. I don't pre-mix my colors, and but for this exercise, it becomes kind of necessary because I want to get kind of a true representation. So I'm going to take my palette knife here, and I'm going to actually get equal volumes of each of the colors, and kind of mix them in a little puddle. And I'm going to start with this mixing this purple. So I'll take a little of the red, and then a little of the alizarin crimson, and then I'll try and get an equal amount of the ultramarine and mix those together. That'll get me that purple. And I apologize that I don't show you the mixing. Like I said, trust me here. Alright, so and then from that, I'm going to take a little bit of that. I'll scrape that up. I'll move that to the side, and then we're going to mix an equal amount of the yellow, the permanent lemon, sorry, with that, and that's going to get us to our purple and yellow gray. And I'll show you what that looks like right below here. So that is, I forgot to put myself on Do Not Disturb. So here we go. Whoops. Alright, so we're going to drop that right in here. And then we're going to And I can already tell that I'm getting a color that I'm not used to getting when I mix all of those. And but nonetheless, that is it. And I have found that the best way for me to really see what's happening is to actually mix that color in a halftone. So I'll take a little bit of white, and I'll mix that with it, and I'll get sort of a halftone. So I'd get a better feel for what that color is going to look like as I mix it down. Now that after I mix that, as I always do, I have the option to shift that color one way or another, either toward the blue or toward the red. It's pretty easy to do. So now we'll take that same, we're just going to take a different purple this time, not the same purple, a little bit of alizarin crimson, and we'll take the King's blue, mix that with it to get the purple that we want. And this is kind of where I got in trouble with my clouds. That's what I wasn't really happy with the cloud shadows. That's where I was struggling with these grays. Mine went red on me, and that's not something I wanted to happen. But if I take that purple that I just mixed, and I'm going to bring it out here and go back to the same yellow. I'll get an equal amount of that in here. And then we get this color out of that one. But you can see that leans a little bit cooler than the one up above, and we'll probably be able to see that better after we halftone it. And get some white, halftone that. And we end up here. All right. Interesting, my halftone went quite a bit more to the blue side. That was a bit of a surprise there. But all right, now I'm going to jump to the next one. I still have my puddle of purple from up above. I've got my French Ultramarine and alizarin crimson. Except this time I'm going to mix in the Indian yellow. I'm going to see what happens there. So I'll grab an amount of that, and I'll add an equal amount of Indian yellow. Let's see what we get here. All right. And that's going to deliver this color right here, which actually looks an awful lot like transparent red iron oxide, doesn't it? I mean, it's really, really similar. And then I'll do the same. I'll halftone that and see how that one, just mixing an equal amount with white, just to see where we end up here. And this one's still very red, very much on the red side. And just to show you an example, if I wanted to shift that to the blue side, then I would just take that same color and I would come back in with just a little bit of the French Ultramarine and mix that into there. And I'll show you an example. Sometimes you get the actual color, and then you go, I kind of like to shift that. And so here's an example of what happens when I shift that a little bit to the blue side. It's not as warm now. Although this would make a beautiful warm shadow color. it moved pretty far away from where we were here when I shifted it, and if I half-tone that color as well, let's see how that gray changes here. So, and then if I half-tone that color, that's what we get here. The halftones are really important to me because it's the only way I can get a really true sense of kind of what's happening with the mix. Once I halftone it out, it's like, oh yeah, now I can see exactly what's happening. It's like here, you know, the blue wasn't showing up here as much as the red, but as soon as I halftoned it, the blue really came out. So, all right, then we're going to take our other purple that we mixed with the King's Blue and the alizarin crimson, and I'm going to actually do the same thing. So I'll take that, and I'm going to pull an equal amount of the Indian yellow into that, and we'll see what happens with that mix. Let's see here. All right. So that one goes this direction right here. Very different than what we have up here. And then I'll pull in here and halftone that one, so you can see what that looks like. And so that almost ends up as a yellow ochre sort of color, like this. And then just as an interesting try, let's try and actually shift that now to the blue side using the King's Blue. We'll take this and shift it to the blue side and see what we get. I have a feeling it's going to go pretty green, which it certainly did. It went this direction, pretty green. But still a really cool gray. Especially if you take it out pretty far in its mix, and say I halftone that again, you know, it really turns into a nice aqua color here. I say aqua, but it's got a lot of blue in it. So yeah, so hopefully you're getting a sense of kind of how this goes, and I'll quickly grab some more of the colors here. We'll take, this is just straight, this one right here, just straight French ultramarine, and I'm going to mix an equal amount of that permanent orange in there. And this is typically where I would live for the gray that I would mix a lot of when I was using my other paints. But this is the one that took me the most by surprise when I mixed it with these. So, yeah. So here we go. This is where we ended up with this. It ends up right here. So this is the permanent orange and the blue. Almost a chocolate brown color. And then if I go in there and halftone that one, and this is what I'm used to mixing for my cloud grays, and so this was not working yesterday. It really kind of threw me for a loop, and my clouds ended up the shadows on the underside of them ended up very red, which I don't really like, but I'm going to live with it for the moment. And now I'm going to shift that one as well to the blue side, so I'll take a little French ultramarine, just because I think this is probably going to solve what I was having trouble accomplishing yesterday. So as I switch to that, I'll just show you a little bit of what that looks like. And this is where I actually wanted to head. So what it told me was that orange is way stronger than I'm used to. And so if I half-tone that now, that's probably going to bring me to more of what I was looking for, that I was having trouble generating. So now I know that that particular mix needs to be balanced for that purpose anyway, for what I'm using it for. It needs to be balanced with more blue than the orange, and then I know I can get into this kind of warm undershadow colors of the clouds just by shifting that to the blue. And now we'll see how the permanent orange reacts to the reacts to the King's blue. So I'll take a little bit of that and put that down here. Oops. Since I already learned something about the orange, I'm going to actually back off a little bit on the orange just to see where this gets me. Since I have a feeling it'll overpower this one the same way. And so that puts us here. That color. And then we'll half-tone that and see what happens. Which puts us here. Nice color. Okay, now we'll jump over to the red and the green, and we're going to start with that phthalo green yellow shade, and mix that up over here. And it's a very, very strong color, so I don't think the alizarin crimson is going to overpower it necessarily, because it is such a I don't know, its chrome is just off the charts. So so anyway, here's what we get with that. Get this color right here, which is the darkest thing I can mix on my palette. And this is a great example of why I have to halftone to really see what's going on with a color, because you just say, man, that's just black. And so you take, once you get a little blue and halftone, or I mean, blue, once I get a little white and I halftone it, you know, that brings me to just a really different place. So now it's very much a dark gray, and almost a really true gray instead of a natural gray. It almost looks like not a true gray. I meant a gray that you would dispense out of a tube. So yeah, and I want to see. I just want to see how far that goes when you take it out a little bit further and halftone that again, to get kind of to that 10-20% range. Yeah, that's a really nice gray. So that one wasn't even in my vocabulary yesterday. I wasn't even thinking about phthalo green yellow shade and alizarin crimson and putting that in the sky, but this would have been a great option actually for what I was trying to achieve, and I had no idea it lived in here. So all right, so let's do the next one, and that's the olive green. And I just put a couple of these on just out of curiosity. So we'll take the olive green and we'll mix that alizarin crimson with that. And see what we get. And that gives us this color here. Again, it's a dark, and I would say it's in the same family as this red, maybe not as red, but let's halftone it and see what happens. Again, if you're just joining in, halftone and just mixing an equal amount of white with the same color that I just mixed. So, and that gets me to this halftone here. Clearly not a sky color, but probably a very beautiful tree trunk color, as well as these right here. A really nice tree trunk colors around, especially for Michigan anyway. And then these next ones are also just for my curiosity. I have a feeling, have some suspicions anyway, where I think they might be headed, but grab some more paper towel here. I believe I take the phthalo green yellow shade, and I'm gonna mix an equal amount of that transparent red iron oxide with that. I have a feeling this as well is going to be a really nice woody sort of a color. So let's take a look here. All right, so that is this one, and again, it's very very dark. I think that phthalo green tends to do that to pretty much anything you mix it with, but really nice dark. Yeah, I can see some green in it still because the transparent red is not overpowering it as much as maybe the alizarin crimson does up here to make this one that much darker, but it has a really nice look to it, and then we'll see how that yeah, that half tones into a really nice mossy kind of mossy green color, which is right here, which is also a really beautiful gray color. A lot of the beech trees that I paint out in the beech forest, you've seen me paint those many times. I want to half that out one more time and see where this goes. Yeah, it's definitely something I would do if I was painting those beech trees. These colors are all in there, so, and that's good to know because I believe I would not have mixed these two colors, thinking that I'm going to use these in a beech tree. I might have been in this range. These are very rich, very nice, especially for shadow side and highlight side. And the mid-tone there is really quite beautiful. So anyway, I'll switch and mix that last one there, and that's the transparent red iron oxide and the olive green, and see what we get out of that one. Probably something similar. I suspect the red oxide is going to overpower the olive green. It's pretty transparent color, so actually they're both transparent in this case, quite a bit actually. So that puts us here, which is also a really nice woody brown color. Almost like the watercolor of a kind of a muddy creek, or a creek with a lot of iron in it. We do have some of those around here, so then we'll half that out and see what we get. Yeah, and it's also just kind of an ochre color, shifted toward a kind of a green side. All right. So there were, hopefully you see why I did this exercise if I was struggling with grays yesterday, because I hadn't mixed a lot of them, especially these 3-color mixes with these new Williamsburg paints. This really helps me out a great deal, and I will grab the camera here and I'll just kind of give you a little closer look at some of these colors, and you can see what happened. Some here's really nice. Some really nice colors in the blues here. Those. These shifted toward the green side. And then if we go up here, these were the surprises. I don't think I would have thought to mix those to get that particular gray. These are those beautiful greens, those beech tree greens, and then kind of these ochre and browns down here. So, anyway. So, let me put a couple things down. There we go. So, thanks so much for checking out the video, and I figured if I'm gonna take the time to try and learn something about these new paints, why not share it with you, right? There's a chance that you might learn something as well. And hopefully, if you haven't done this exercise with your own paints, pull them out, do some mixing. It'll really pay off when you get in the field and you're struggling a little bit with like I was yesterday. Like, what do I do with that? Why is this sky cloud shadow so red? When I was mixing just like I've mixed before, but the brands are very different. So anyway, thanks so much for following along and hanging out with me for a little while. And I'll catch you later.